This news drops from The Athletic. Apparently, Russell Wilson kind of wants to leave Seattle. Danny Kelly, huge Seahawks fan. On a scale of 1 to 10, how emotionally devastated are you right now, Danny Kelly?
I'm not emotionally devastated. I'm going to change the ranking, the rating that you just mentioned, because I've been using a 5 big top circus rating for the Seahawks. The Seahawks have been a circus since basically Pete Carroll came to town. Varying levels of circusness throughout the years, obviously with a lot of drama, a lot of big personalities in Seattle. Right now, I elevated the circus rating to 3 big tops out of 5. I wasn't quite ready to believe all the rumors and all the smoke kind of going around about Seattle, right? Until this morning. Michael Sean Dugar, Mike Sando, Jason Jenks, all 3 very good reporters. This to me is kind of the first time I'm starting to get a little bit worried that like there's actually something to this. Like Russell Wilson, I don't think he's going to get traded right away, but it does feel like there's a divorce on the horizon coming. Like whether it's at the end of this season or maybe there's a slight possibility even before this year gets off. So yeah, I'm starting to feel like there's actually something to this. Where there's smoke, there's fire, and Wilson is clearly trying to exert. It feels to me like Wilson's trying to exert his pressure on the Seahawks to kind of like get back to doing things that way that he wants to do it.
Yeah, so big report from The Athletic basically saying that Russell Wilson wants to pass more, cook more. I hate that phrase, but cook, whatever. And that he kind of may want to trade to somewhere else, Dolphins, Jets, Saints, Raiders. Nora, what do you make of all this as someone who's not emotionally invested in Seattle? Or maybe you are, I don't know.
I'm emotionally invested in Seattle because I live for drama. So I like the Seahawks in their current configuration, and I would like for Russell Wilson to stay there. Big picture, did the let Russ cook movement ruin the Seahawks? I think there's a possibility that in hindsight, we're going to go, oh my gosh, everybody tweeted so much that Russell Wilson adopted this deeply held belief that he was being held back, which is in part true, but it undermined the very fabric of their organization and potentially led to this divorce between a great quarterback and a franchise that, while wild, which again, I appreciate, is really successful. Russell Wilson, the grass is not necessarily greener. And I will say in that report, there were some details that gave me a little bit of pause about his mindset, where they were talking about his desire to be Tom Brady-like and his admiration for Derek Jeter. Russ, you're amazing. Those guys are kind of one of a kind. I don't know that chasing Tom Brady status is a good idea or something that's going to work out. The other thing I want to mention, some of this apparently went down in that box at the Super Bowl where Sierra and Russ were with the Goodells. I would read 10,000 words in oral history format or whatever about what that room was like on that day. There is nothing else in this world that I want to know about more than Sierra and Roger Goodell making small talk while Russell Wilson fires off angry text messages about how he's on pace to be like the most sacked quarterback in NFL history. That is juicy stuff. And I don't want it to end. This is Russ, stay in Seattle, keep it going. Like Andy Cohen's got to come in and just break it all down, get everybody on the couch. They'll talk it out, they'll hash it out, and it's going to be okay. But I need the Seahawks because the Seahawks are fun.
So my immediate
I was
response,
more emotional there than I thought I was going to be.
Yeah,
I guess I really care about this.
I think you're speaking logically. However, Russell Wilson absolutely believes that he can be on Tom Brady's level. You know what I mean? Like there's no chance he's going to be like, I'm happy being pretty good. He sees himself as, a legendary player. He's said that since like the day he got to Seattle, even when he went through, his ups and downs early on in his career. He's always been talking about how he wants to be great, how he wants to be, this all-timer type player. So I think that the let Russ cook thing is definitely, it's been a part of what's happening with like the Seahawks relationship, but I don't think it's what the actual catalyst, because I think Russell was always going to want this. He was always going to want to be, expand his legacy. And they talk about this in this Athletic article. Like he wants the MVP award. He wants, multiple Super Bowls. He wants the statistics, honestly, that will have him be remembered as one of the great all-time players. So he absolutely does want that, and he sees himself as that. And so, while logically speaking, it's like you'd want to tell him, hey man, things are pretty good where you are, and you should just be happy that you're winning 10 plus games every season and having a chance to go to the playoffs and all that stuff. Like that's not realistic, I don't think, with him.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, DK, where he kind of seems to want this Tom Brady like career, but Russell Wilson's always been kind of a cartoon character, right? Like he just is like a human cliche came to life, like all those athlete motivational Instagram posts. If they had a human body and all of 10 million of them tags became a person, it would be Russell Wilson. Like he's all about the team, and his teammates in Seattle kind of thought he was corny and inauthentic because it's like, who could possibly be all about cliches and like togetherness and all this stuff? But he really seems to believe it. Yeah, Pete Carroll. Yeah, that's why they get along. And so seeing that the ego kind of come out now in his mid-30s, where it's like, actually, I have always wanted the MVPs and I have always wanted to be the best, and it is about me, is kind of really striking to have all that come out. And then it's not like the winning stuff is fake or whatever, but I do think it's interesting to see him chasing the individual accolades at this age. And from his perspective, if he's made it this far in life, why is it so crazy to think he could be Tom Brady? Like, it was hard enough for this short guy who wasn't heavily recruited in high school, not heavily drafted, to already be at his stature is a crazier leap than him going from where he is now to becoming Tom Brady. From his perspective, I kind of see where he's coming from, but the flip side is I don't think that this is going to happen. We were slacking with Kevin Clark before this pod. Nora, what do you think is more likely here? Russ getting traded or Deshaun Watson getting traded?
Deshaun Watson getting traded, with the caveat that I don't view the Houston Texans as a rational actor, so it's very hard to predict what they're going to do. But we just saw Deshaun Watson have an incredible season, and it wasn't good enough to make them a good team. So if you are a rational actor and you have an unhappy Deshaun, you should unload him before the draft and use it as a reset for your entire franchise. Just, it didn't go well. Let's scrap it and try again. The Seahawks, if they can get over this, they're still a good team. So they should try to salvage this, in my view. They're pretty good. They could be a lot. They're
without
not the
Russ?
Texans. No, but that's why they should try to keep Russ.
I mean, they win 10 games like every year, Heifetz.
The Seahawks rational. Russ, the Seahawks
use the term rational actor like this is war games, and
it is. The Seahawks with Russ have a more recent track record of succeeding than the Texans do with Deshaun Watson, and that seems to only be going one direction, which is downhill. So logically, and again, I don't ascribe logic as a huge part of things that are going on in Houston, Texas right now with regards to the professional football team there. But if you use logic, then yes, don't get into this hold out forever, everyone's entrenched thing where you're just going to stink and prolong the process of rebuilding that team. Trade him, start fresh. I don't think it's as clear cut in Seattle. I think you should really try to keep Russell Wilson there if you can.
I think the thing that's interesting to me here is that the optics really matter. And I think that Russ is saying that in some ways. And that with Deshaun Watson, the reason that this is such a different situation is that when Deshaun Watson asks for a trade, everyone's like, oh, yeah, that's smart. The Texans are a dumpster fire. And no one's mad at Deshaun Watson. Usually when a player asks for a trade, everyone's mad at the player. DK, if Russ actually does want to trade, how would Seahawks fans react? Because I feel like Seahawks fans love Russ.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm sure it would be very divided because there's already a strong divide of people in Pete Carroll's camp and people in Russell Wilson's camp, I think. You know, Pete Carroll has brought the most consistent, the greatest stretch of prosperity for the Seahawks franchise ever. And so a lot of people are like, you know, if you think this is Pete Carroll's fault, you're insane. And then on the other hand, there's this really strong camp that's very active on Twitter that wants Pete to let Russ cook. And they view Pete Carroll as the reason the Seahawks are a perennial, pretty good team, but not a great team, if that makes any sense. They view Pete Carroll as the reason the Seahawks are not the Chiefs. So I think that there would be a very strong divide. There would be some people that would be like, I just want Russ to go somewhere where he's going to maximize his career. So I get this. And it's stupid. And I think those people would be like, it sucks that the Seahawks are picking Pete Carroll over Russell Wilson. And then on the other hand, I think there'd be a camp of people that are like, Wilson's not as good as he thinks he is. And keeping this future Hall of Fame coach here is the most important thing. He's going to provide that stability. Every year, you're going to get 10 wins or whatever. So I think it'd be very divided along those two lines.
Can't both of those things kind of be true? Because if Russell Wilson thinks
Yeah.
that he's Tom Brady, he's not as good as he thinks he is. But he's still really
Right.
good. And the Seahawks should occasionally let him pass more aggressively on early downs. Like, sit it out. Just talk it out. Figure it out.
There's a gray
guys.
area. Yeah. Gotta
I
live
think
in
the
that
funny
gray
thing is
area.
Pete Carroll's like this surfer dude, chill guy, but like also intensely stubborn because he went 53-0 at USC or whatever when they won the turnover battle. So like this idea that they would be flexible about like it's like this very old school kind of style couched in like this very new vibes. I'm good with millennials, even though I'm the oldest coach in the NFL kind of vibe. But DK, to your point about the Seahawks Twitter people wanting Russ to throw and then other people wanting Pete Carroll, is the people on Twitter like this vocal minority? And that most people are probably going to side with Pete Carroll, but those people are not online.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I live in the vocal minority, so it's hard to know. I'm in like that Seahawks echo chamber, So it's one of those things where like
You've been
for
radicalized
people that are
online.
For people who are always on Twitter like me, when you talk to your friends who are not on Twitter, they're like, "What are you talking about? I have no idea that this is even a thing." You know what I mean? It's like old people like me not knowing what's going on TikTok. So if I'm trying to like decide whether the majority of people are in the Let Russ Cook camp, I have no idea. On Twitter,
Danny,
they
I
are.
know
Carroll's
you
a huge
asked
TikTok
other-
star, right?
I know you asked other Danny that question. If the question is, are people on Twitter in a vocal minority? The answer is always yes. The answer to
Yeah,
that
that's a
good
question has
point.
never once in the history
Right.
of the universe been no.
That's
Yeah.
a good point.